Taking the convo to high levels. Comment, like, and subscribe if you're enjoying Durable Minds Radio.
As law enforcement is stepping up operations in the Blade to try to put a stop to those crimes. 12 News journalist Chase Golightly, you were actually in the Blade tonight. And I have to say, Chase, I've been here a long time. I never heard of that area being called the Blade.
Me neither, Troy, but apparently the Blade is a 3-mile stretch along 27th Avenue from Indian School to Northern, just west of the I-17 there. It's also in the same area as Grand Canyon University. Now complaints from GCU and from neighbors are causing law enforcement to ramp up operations in that area.
I love my property. I don't like some of the problems that we're dealing with along there.
He's put in a lot of work to make this bill a reality. HB 2720 would make it a felony on the first offense to solicit a prostitute.
The Figueroa Court in the city of Los Angeles.
We are extremely lean, and my hope is that we are able to maintain enough people so that we don't stop doing any functions that we're currently doing.
Do you have the funds to expand that vice team?
We don't.
Is there a specific plan to get some of this trafficking off of Figueroa?
Right, there is, but you know, it is difficult because it is like whack-a-mole. So you can crack down on Figueroa, and now we have a problem in another part of the city, which is why it is important to go after the criminal enterprises, the traffic, and to go after the Johns.
Can we basically go after the Johns? I call them these sex exploiters.
Who benefits when they push out these type of articles and reports and documentaries, right? Who benefits this, right? And it's been a couple, right? We could talk about the Arizona bill, right, where they're trying to move prostitution to a felony. And then we can also touch on the LA ABC News, where they dropped their little documentary, right, about basically how, you know, they're trying to expose the public safety and whatnot, right? I want to know, I present the question to the audience today, to the broadcast, is why are the news outlets and the media so one-sided? You know? So one-sided. So let's say if the Arizona prostitution felony the bill does work, right? Then what does that mean for the females in the lifestyle, right? Are you going to have solid females in the lifestyle, or are you going to have shaky females in the lifestyle, right? I'm a firm believer there will be two, right? You'll have the solid ones and the shaky ones, right? To where the solid ones, they will move very more selective, right? They will understand to raise prices now because what they're participating in is it's a felony in the government's eyes. So the rates will raise, right? You know, to where the volume will drop and the seriousness will increase. Meaning they will take it more seriously if they chose to live this lifestyle, right? The solid ones. Then you have the shaky ones, right? The shaky ones, now that they know it's a felony, they might cooperate with the police way faster, right? They might cooperate with the police way faster because they don't want to get the felony, right? As if now it's just a misdemeanor. So with it just being a misdemeanor, they might not, you know, feel the need to cooperate. But if it's a felony, the shaky hoes, the shaky ones out there that's still choosing the lifestyle, they might cooperate real faster. To where they might cooperate and just frame somebody as a pimp just to save their self from taking that felony, right? To where with the pressure of it being a felony now can expose, you know, the ones that's truly loyal, and it can expose the endurance, the one that's choosing to be in this lifestyle, right? You know, so them shaky ones, you gotta understand. I doubt, right? We're gonna talk about the pushback of this bill being happening, right? And we're talking about the Arizona one, where they will make prostitution a felony. I doubt the bill, you know, succeeds because there's a lot of pushback in that area, right? Because one thing you could say is, you know, that's a victimized. How would you know the difference from a victim, right? Quote unquote victim in this lifestyle if all of them are getting charged with a felony, right? So what's the pimp's mindset, right? What would be the pimp's mindset if AZ was to make prostitution a felony, right? I'm trying to get comfortable right here. Here we go. What would be the pimp's mindset within that? Well, one would believe that, the pimp mindset, he might fade away from playing the blade as much because he understands that that's easily to expose, especially if the female is a felon now. They could just pull up and charge her. So, the pimp mindset, he might fall back from playing the blade as much, try different avenues and lanes. Now, we're just speaking hypothetically right now, right? We're touching on the left picture right here for the ones that's just coming in. Do me a favor, share this live, and let's see if we can get some more people in here. And put your thoughts in the comments as well, right? We're touching on this Arizona bill, and I believe it was just a citizen, a regular civilian that is trying to push the AZ bill. And I believe the reason behind it was because his neighborhood, right? He lives in a neighborhood where, the females be down, and it's annoying to him. So he thought, well, if we make a bill for them to be felons, then that would clear up his neighborhood. Now, he has nobody backing his bill. He has no investors behind it. So it's not really written, it's not really in motion, say, for instance, as the Denver, Colorado one, right? So with the pimp's mindset, knowing if this bill happens, right, he will understand lowering his visibility, right? He will understand minimizing the paper trail, maybe keeping his distance from everything, right? So we look back on this. Okay, let's see the AZ bill. Now the prostitutes are felons, right? What to say? Old Town Scottsdale used to be complicated, completely different place before the fig type. Them white people tired of the ghetto-ish. Well, yeah. I mean, using the word ghetto is very selective, right? So let's say the bill does change, right? And now prostitution is a felony in Arizona. The cons, for that, for sure there will be more stings, right? For sure they will increase in informers, right? More informers. And, the females will claim victim at a high status, right? Now you look at the pros. The pros, the rates, the prices will raise due to, it being a felony. It's only right that the price is raised, right? The female will have to take it more seriously because she got to take the structure part seriously because she understands the risk behind it, right? To where overall the quality will outweigh the quantity, right? Because it will become very, very selective, right? It will become very, very selective. Now, there's pushback on that, right? Now, why wouldn't this bill even pass to begin with? And we're still touching on the AZ, and then we'll talk about the LA. Well, for one, a lot of the pushback is going to come from like civil rights groups. It's going to come from anti-trafficking organizations, things like that, to where, even the public defender's office, they look at that female as a victim, right? So they're going to give pushback to whoever's trying to create this bill because that's going to minimize the victim females out there, right? Now we ask ourselves earlier, right? Why do they do this? Who really benefits? Are they trying to look out for the females? Are they trying to look out for the citizens that's complaining? Or is this a politic angle? Is this very political? To where them pushing out this, now organizations like the feds get funded, right? That's eligibility for them to get funded now, right? Where, politicians and political fields can start having new talking points, right? To where now they can fund bigger task force, right? Now, I believe that's who really benefits when they push this. I don't think they're for cleaning up the streets and they're for this and for that. I understand the Olympics is around the corner, so yes. But at the same time, somebody's trying to feed their pockets, right? Somebody is trying to feed their pockets, right? Somebody's trying to feed their pockets. Let's talk about the ABC 7 LA News, right? Inside the notorious human trafficking, right? Now, what they was touching on when they played their little video, you know, and when I do the playback, I'll put the video in the playback. I didn't want to play it live because we can dissect it without even watching it, right? We already understand their agenda when they publicize these type of things, right? And what they was really touching on, just like the AZ, you know, with the public safety, right? How the civilians that live in the areas where these blades at, they're tired of seeing the girls walk around and cars drive around. So they lean very heavy on the public safety, right? They was talking about the daylight prostitution, right? How the girls are doing their thing during the daytime, right? They also try to frame the prostitute as being exploited or trafficked, right? Now we ask ourselves, why do they always just frame it that way, right? Why don't they never, you know, really give the other side, you know, the true side? Why is it always one-sided with everything? Well, I'll give y'all a couple reasons why it's, you know, one-sided. Because when you have a clear villain, which is the pimping, right, that gives your audience, which is the masses, which is the viewers, a clear story, right? When it gets real, you know, understanding of how this goes and this really detailed, then the audience or the viewers that's watching the news, they're going to be unclear of the story. So by giving a clear villain, which is the pimp man, which is that title, right? They give their audience a clear story. So that's one reason they do it, right? That trafficking narrative, you know, it gives funding, like I just touched on. It gives funding, right? It gives policy, right? To where now when they, you know, push out that narrative of everything is being trafficked, they're able to get funded behind that. That's how human trafficking task force are created. You know, that's how feds get grants. You know, they have to push it out there for the media to where now when they write the bills, now they can tax society, and society wouldn't have no pushback because they're thinking they're quote unquote cleaning up the streets, right? When reality is they're just funding themselves. They're going to probably utilize it and do bare minimum. You know what I mean? Because they don't have a true understanding, you know? They also touch on the kids, but we don't, you know, the ones in the lifestyle don't even like when they compare, you know, kids and this lifestyle. You know, there is no comparison, but they like to do that. And like I said, you know, sooner or later, the more we keep speaking scholarship, the more they will put that pimp title up there with the doctor title or the lawyer title and so on and so on. And not down there by the, you know, the PDF file title. You know, they like to get funded, right? Meaning creating task force, right? They call it cracking down on the pimps, quote unquote. That's their words, right? The media will push that. It creates a clear enemy to society when they push that agenda. It creates a clear enemy, which is the pimp man, right? Within doing that, it avoids the bigger questions. Like, why are y'all always in one area? Why is it always the low income ones? You know, questions in those type of natures. Why do the females keep choosing to live this lifestyle, right? So when they, you know, make a villain, you know, they get to avoid the big questions, right? Or should I say the bigger questions, right? To where they're more worried about enforcement than the system, right? It expands the government's authority, right? The media knows that P&H lifestyle is on top of the world, above presidents, billionaires, and celebrities. The 16 can't be controlled, so they criminalize you. And I agree. That they're going to criminalize the pimp man because, you know, in the broad surface of things, most of them on the other end is the trick man, right? So yes, they're going to paint a narrative, right? They're going to get society to be able to understand who's the clear villain, right? You know, they're not going to give true understanding of that, right? You know, they're going to blur the trafficking, right? And with them blurring the trafficking, what they don't realize is they give the females that choose this lifestyle little credit, right? Meaning it removes the female agency, right? There is no narrative of a female agency in this lifestyle, right? Because they're so gung-ho on bashing the pimp man, right? To where now the media lumps all prostitution into trafficking, right? It doesn't even separate the ones that chose the lifestyle. They don't really talk about that at all. So the ones that chose the lifestyle now in society's mind, them females are not smart, right? They don't know how to make good moves, you know, to where now society can orchestrate both ends, the female and the male that lives this lifestyle, right? To where now the media gets a fear of the pimp man, and also, you know, thinks the 304 is a victim, when reality is most 304s chose this lifestyle, right? Right? They like to leave it in a blur area though, you know. They never show the demand side. Keep applying, brother. Well, yeah, Ocean Head King, I appreciate that, right? I appreciate that, right? They never show the demand side, right? The demand of the reality, right? Meaning the buyers drive the market. They really don't want to highlight the buyers, right? Because 9 times out of 10, a lot of them are the buyers. So they're not going to highlight the demand, right? If there was no tricks, I'm pretty sure there would be no girls outside, right? But, the media, they're going to push it. It's everybody else's fault but the buyers, right? And because 9 times out of 10, majority of the people making these bills and, setting these laws and pushing these laws are the buyers. You get what I'm saying? They're going to paint the picture of the black man anyways. Right. They're more concerned with the pimp man, right? They're more concerned with even the man that wears the costume of a pimp, right? That person will get, the charge faster than the buyer, right? To where when they push these articles out, the demand side is very, very inconsistent, right? And, pimping, we ain't mad at the tricks. We just understand, like, okay, if the news media are going to go frame the pimp man in a box and call him this and call him that and have the whole society looking at him like a villain, well, let's talk about the roots of this then, right? Let's talk about the other side, right? The buyers, right? If we're gonna talk about it, if these ladies are victims, right? Then let's talk about the buyers that's victimizing these ladies. But the news media will never touch on that, right? They like to show the worst, show the worst blocks, show what's happening on the worst, right? And when they show it, they edit it up to where it's real dark and gloomy. They put all that scary music behind it. They do a nighttime B-roll, right? And it's very, very dramatic music, to where, it doesn't even show the true essence, right? Now, when we talk about traffickers, right? It's 2026. Don't y'all agree that most traffickers are, doing this to these ladies and abusing these ladies through the internet nowadays? Not necessarily outside on the blade. Wouldn't you think most of the girls that's outside on the blade choose to be outside on the blade? Most of these, quote-unquote traffickers are utilizing the online, the internet. But do we hear these news medias, touching on that? No, they always, because if you can see it, you can create it, right? Just like they did with the books turning into the movies back in the day. they can format it, right? They can create the narrative now with the visuals effects. So that's why they have to go outside and give their audience a visual, right? And within that visual, it's created. It's not organic, you know, to where now they're going to be able to show the worst. And then, you know, paraphrase that to this is the totality of the lifestyle. And if they're really trying to stop the traffickers, they will understand that most of these traffickers and things like that are utilizing the internet. You get what I'm saying? Just like the drugs, when a nigga finds some way to get some money without their hand, and then they go penalize you. Well, you know, drugs, you're I don't like comparing drugs, because then, you know, either the drug or the drug user is the comparison of the female and its lifestyle, right? To where listen, if the law enforcement wants to, you know, stop people from selling drugs because the drug they're selling could kill another person, then I understand that. But within this lifestyle, right, that's meaning this female's choosing her profession, and she's choosing to be a prostitute, and she's choosing to be with a man that understands her and gives her suggestions, meaning that man is the pimping, right? That's totally different, you know? That's totally different, you know? That's totally different, right? They also, want to ignore the economy factor, right? They want to ignore that factor too, right? They never want to deep dive into the roots, right? They never want to deep dive into, you know, why people chose this lifestyle, right? The frame becomes more of a failure of person. They never want to shine the light on the survivor techniques, right? They never want to shine light. And I don't think they ever will until enough gentlemen like ourselves start preaching this scholarship to them, you know? As long as we start preaching this scholarship, you know? Who we got in here, huh? Let's shake it up. Who do we have in here? Like I said, if I send some invites, if we got some new fellas in here that want to tap in, that doesn't mean leave the live. That doesn't mean you have to come up. I appreciate the ones that's commenting. I appreciate the ones that shared this live. And I also appreciate the ones that go subscribe to the Durable Minds YouTube channel, right? So let me send some invites and see if we could get some gentlemen's point on this topic. Invite, right? And I kind of wanted to touch on that today because I see a lot of these news articles. I see a lot of these game pages posting this and posting that. And, you know, I don't know if it's a scare tactic for people in the lifestyle or whatnot. What I'm here to say is the agenda is for them to benefit their pockets. Their agenda is to benefit their pockets. Their agenda is not to, you know, now you got to recognize this. You got to move accordingly, right? You don't want to just be sticking out like a sore thumb, right? Until where you get a true taste of the new laws that they're trying to push out there, right? You take this, you take it with a grain of salt. You dissect it, you understand the true agenda behind it, right? And you keep moving forward, right? Like I said, the first bill, you know, the one in Arizona, I doubt it gets passed, right? Now, this sex in plain sight is just an awareness video to spark up conversations and whatnot. And within doing that, we have to understand that they're being one-sided, that they're trying to create a narrative to benefit whatever reasons, right? What's going on with Finney? What is on your mind, sir?
I think I think whoever's circulating that politician got robbed.
Say that again. You went a little out. You went out right there.
I said whoever's circulating the politician got robbed.
What do you mean? Break that down a little bit more.
I'm saying they went they had them a date and they got robbed and they was like, man, I'm shutting all this shit down.
Oh, they got robbed out on a political stand.
Word.
So now they're trying to get back through pushing out these bills. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying like cause they use women in the lifestyle for espionage too. So I'm saying like like I know they don't have a good taste in their mouth for, you know what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying, man. I see what you're saying, man. And like I said, man, it's when it comes to the political angles, you have, you have the Republicans where they're like, to the 304, like, it should be a felon. You know what I mean? They're looked down upon. And then you have the Democrats where they look at them as a victim.
So is that real? Like they're really trying to make prostitution a felony?
Their shit going out too, man. Is it my side or is it y'all side?
I don't know,
Because I
cut
can't.
out.
Okay, there you go. There you go. What you say now?
I said that's really happening though. They're trying to push a bill to make it a felony.
Right, right, right. That's the Democrats. I mean,
Where
that's the Republicans. In certain states, it will be the Republicans that want to make it a bill to be a felony, right? Because they're not looking at the females as a victim. They're looking at the females as, soliciting, you know?
so would you try to move through that or would you relocate?
I mean, so if there was a felony in the state,
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't relocate. I would just understand it's a felony, and like I said, either enhance your type of screening, enhance your rates, and also turn it into more of a quality than a quantity, right? To where you just tighten up, man. You get very, very selective on, who you're dealing with. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think that's really like what it is the unprofessionalism that makes them go hard like on these areas and surveillance these areas, you know?
Right, right. And like I said, man, it's all a scare tactic, and it's all to create a villain. So everybody has an understanding of what really is going on, but it's just a narrative. It's not the truth, right? That's why they're being one-sided when they talk about these topics and they talk about how the blade is and this and that. They're always going to be one-sided. They're never going to truly, tell the other side, which is the real side, right? Let me see. I'm trying to fix this because hold on, Finney. Hold on.
You
Because on
got it.
my end, I have there we go. He's gone. Okay. I was about not Finney, but the other dude was still up on the screen. The first gentleman I brought up here. Let me see what these comments are saying. My goat. What is my goat talking about? I think that. Let's see. I think that. Come on up here. Is he in the comments still? Let me see. I think. What is his name? What is his name? I think that. Let me try to get him up here. Let me try to get I think that up here and see what he's talking about. If he doesn't want to come up here, we'll get back into these comments and we'll keep it rolling like that. I think that. Oh, man. I wasn't going to do a broadcast today because I'm a little under the weather and I got these sniffles. Okay, I can't find this page anymore. So let's see what y'all was talking about in the comments. Facts. Niggas gotta be smarter. Can't be driving a 100K car in a rich neighborhood with no paperwork. I mean, yeah, you don't want to put a target on yourself, right? If you are gonna be, you want to be legit, right? That's always a good idea. I would be an auto god if that happened. Auto. Yeah, I mean, yeah. You want to keep your distance. You want to turn invisible. You know what I'm saying? That's not a bad idea. They knocking game too because it's creating a lot of renegades. I don't think if they made it a felony, I don't think there will be so many renegades. I think the females will realize they have to have more structure. So a lot of the renegades will stop. They will quit. They ain't trying to go to jail for no felony. So they'll quit, right? They would try to keep their little quote unquote regulars maybe and just rock till the wheels fall off with that, right? Those is the shaky hoes, right? The solid ones, I think they would be more selective. I think they would raise their prices, and I think they would take it more serious, right? The seriousness will increase because the volume drops, right? As for the shaky ones, they gonna be ready to cooperate. You know, you be boyfriend, thinking, you know, she think you her boyfriend, you think you know, you some pimping, and you know, she get caught up on some with them people. Yeah, most likely she's going to cooperate, right? Because she's not trying to get that felon. So I think the shaky ones, if it was a felon, the pressure would expose their loyalty, and it also would expose their endurance, right? Meaning they're not going to take it seriously, right? You know, let me see. Let's get some more thoughts up in here, man. Let's get some more questions in here, man. If I send an invite, come on up. Don't leave the live. Let's see who we got. Mike's Cream, come on up. Gecko, come on up. Let me see. Ocean King, come on up. Matt Price, come on up. Let's talk about it, man. Butter, come on up. You're not fucking with it today. It's all good. Throw feet parties. What's that mean? Throw feet parties, Matt Price. What you mean by that? Knock me one at Amazon yesterday. We were both doing our orientation. Mike, come up here and tell us that story, man. How did it go down, man? So you don't think they're trying to paint the picture of the pimp like Boogeyman? Yes. They're for sure trying to, you know, create the pimp and make him a clear villain, right? Because with him being a clear villain, that's a clear story to the audience. Question, how do you properly screen? Is it the same for every state? No, I wouldn't say it's the same for every state. I wouldn't even say it's the same for every trick, right? You know, when you properly screen, knowing that all money ain't good money is going to put you in the mindset to properly screen, right? Now, if you're thirsty or you're doing bad and you need some money, you're going to be thinking about screening, but you might, you feel me, skip a couple of the screening dams, right? So the ultimate thing with screening to me is understanding all money ain't good money, to where don't beat yourself up if you lose opportunity. You might thought it, oh, and you said fuck it, and it wasn't. It's all good. Life go on. It's gonna be another one. You dig?
Keep the bullshit, I'll take all the money. You can keep the bullshit, I'll take all the money.
Illustrating the ism.
Whole lot of tank shit, man. The South, East in here too, man. This shit slap like pimp pants. This shit slap like pimp pants.